on course, who's on border? Hilltop next try not retarded. Get shot, ain't no started, just not again. You better.
Welcome back, those of you still with us. From July 21st to July 27th, there were 707 shootings across the United States. These left 262 people dead. 223 of them were victims, and 46 were suspects. Another 640 people were injured. California led the nation again, with 28 killed in 46 incidents. Texas followed with 26 dead in 47 incidents. Georgia came in third with 20 killed across 42 incidents. Chicago once again had the highest number of incidents, though only 3 resulted in fatalities. Philadelphia reported 23 incidents with 4 dead, while Atlanta saw 21 incidents with 6 killed. A few states avoided the list altogether. Alaska, Hawaii, Idaho, Maine, New Hampshire, and South Dakota reported 0 shootings and earned the No Shooting Award. Honorable mentions go to Massachusetts, Connecticut, Oregon, North Dakota, Rhode Island, and Vermont, which had shootings but no fatalities. Congratulations! Now let's dive into the 10 worst shootings of the week, starting at number 10. Number 10, Atlanta, Georgia. Just after 1 in the afternoon, Atlanta police were called to the Shell station at 1675 Memorial Drive Southeast for reports of a man shot. Medics pronounced him dead at the scene. While detectives were still there, the suspect, 36-year-old Tavares Williams, returned to the area. He tried to run, but officers chased him down and took him into custody. About 90 minutes later, officers were called again, this time to a townhome community on Schuyler Way Southeast. Inside, they found 33-year-old Aaron Hines, a well-known youth football coach called Coach Ball, shot in the head and dead at the scene. Police say Williams had been inside the home with Hines and others when the shooting happened. The 2 crime scenes are about 5 miles apart. Williams is now charged in both killings with murder, aggravated assault, and multiple firearm offenses. He also faces extra charges for attacking an officer after his arrest. Investigators have not released a motive. A vigil is being planned to honor Hines. Number 9, Austin, Texas. Just after 2 in the morning on Wednesday, July 23rd, deputies with the Travis County Sheriff's Office were sent on a welfare check to the 8100 block of Dalmatian Lane in eastern Travis County near Beethoven Run. When they arrived around 2:07, they found 2 people with gunshot wounds, a man in his 20s and a teenage girl. The man was pronounced dead at the scene. First responders performed CPR on the girl, but she later died from her injuries. The sheriff's office later confirmed the male victim worked for the agency as a corrections officer. Investigators also said the 2 victims are related, although they did not specify their relationship. The case is being described as an isolated incident with no ongoing threat to the public. Detectives with the homicide unit processed the scene through the early morning and began interviews, but they have not publicly discussed a motive, the sequence of events, or who fired the weapon. The names of both victims had not been released at the time of the update, and the investigation remains active. Because the sheriff's office called the case isolated, said there is no threat to the public, and did not announce any arrests, it raises the possibility of a murder-suicide, though that is only speculation and has not been confirmed by investigators. Number 8, Ridgeway, Virginia. Around 1 in the afternoon on Tuesday, July 22nd, deputies in Henry County responded to Meeks Road in Ridgeway after a report of a man lying in the roadway. They found 68-year-old William Leroy Morey dead from multiple gunshot wounds. Inside the nearby home, deputies discovered 22-year-old Mandy Coleman dead from an apparent single gunshot wound. Investigators identified the suspect as 30-year-old Joshua Corbett Coleman, who lived at the residence and was Mandy Coleman's husband. After the shootings, Coleman left with the couple's 2 young children, an 11-month-old and a 2-year-old. A deputy later spotted his vehicle in Martinsville, and with assistance from local police conducted a traffic stop at a credit union on DuPont Road. Coleman was taken into custody without further incident. Officers recovered a handgun and an Armalite 15 rifle from the vehicle, and both children were found safe. Court filings state Coleman confessed, telling investigators he and his wife argued. He accused her of cheating, retrieved a gun, and shot her in the head. He said he then left with the children, knew he was going to jail, and went looking for Maury. When he encountered Maury on Meeks Road, he shot and killed him. Authorities noted the case is domestic in nature, and the sheriff has said there is no ongoing threat to the public. Coleman is being held without bond at the Henry County Adult Detention Center. Charges include 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of use of a firearm in the commission of a felony, 1 count of shooting from an occupied vehicle, and 2 counts of child abuse and neglect. The investigation is ongoing. Number 7, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Around 2:30 in the morning on Tuesday, July 22nd, Milwaukee police responded to reports of gunfire near North 41st Street and West Glendale Avenue on the city's north side. Officers arrived to find 2 men dead from gunshot wounds. The Milwaukee County Medical Examiner's Office later identified them as 49-year-old Donald McGraw and 50-year-old Julius Arbery. Family members told reporters the 2 were friends. The shooting woke neighbors, several of whom came outside after hearing 3 gunshots. One woman, who did not want to show her face for safety reasons, said she looked outside to see both men lying on the ground across the street. Community leader William Olivier, who lives nearby and works with the group Bridge Builders Milwaukee, called the killings shocking and tragic, stressing that any loss of life is too much. While he regularly walks the neighborhood without fear, the double homicide underscored the city's rising homicide count, at least 84 so far this year, higher than at this point last year. Police have not released any suspect information, and the motive remains unknown. Number 6, Melbourne, Florida. On Wednesday night, July 23rd, around 8:45, Brevard County deputies and West Melbourne police were called to Washington Street near Milwaukee Avenue. They found 2 gunshot victims at a neighbor's home, 83-year-old George White and a 25-year-old woman. Both were taken to the hospital, where George White died. The woman's injuries were described as non-life-threatening. Officers then checked the Whites' nearby residence and discovered 81-year-old Mary White deceased inside. Investigators identified the suspect as the couple's grandson, 22-year-old Jeremiah Campbell of Texas. The sheriff's office says Campbell had arrived at his grandparents' home within the past few days for unknown reasons. According to the initial timeline, the incident began at the White's house, where Mary White was shot. George White ran to a neighbor for help, and as he went inside that home, the shooter fired again, striking both George and the neighbor. Campbell fled but was located and detained about an hour later. He was booked into the Brevard County Jail with no bond. Campbell is charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder, 1 count of attempted second-degree murder, and 1 count of shooting into an occupied residence. Detectives have not announced a motive. Number 5, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Just before 8:30 on Saturday night, officers from the 39th District were called to the 1900 block of West Hunting Park Avenue in Tioga Nicetown for a shooting at a birthday cookout. They found 2 men with multiple gunshot wounds. A 26-year-old man was unresponsive with a head wound and was pronounced dead at Temple University Hospital. A 29-year-old man, also found unresponsive with a head wound on a nearby porch, was pronounced dead at Temple as well. Police later identified the victims as 26-year-old Couron Ross Weems and 29-year-old Nifik Johnson. 2 more victims arrived at hospitals by private car. A 26-year-old woman, the mother of a 7-year-old girl at the gathering, was shot in the arm and listed in stable condition. The child sustained a wound to the side of her head and was treated at a children's hospital. Reports describe the injury as a graze and stable, with some outlets noting it required surgery. Detectives say an argument between 2 men at the party turned physical and erupted into gunfire. Amid the chaos, a 20-year-old neighbor, Lonzel David McDaniel, allegedly came out of his home and fired down the street toward the crowd. According to police, one of the men who was killed had been trying to give aid when he was struck. McDaniel was later arrested and charged with murder and firearms offenses, including carrying without a license and carrying on the streets, along with related counts. The homicide unit is leading the investigation. Police have not provided a full motive for the initial dispute. Neighbors told reporters they were shocked that a child was caught in the gunfire, and city leaders called the incident yet another example of children being placed in danger by reckless shootings. Number 4, Mount Vernon, Illinois. Just before 1 in the morning on Sunday, July 27th, gunfire broke out in the 600 block of South 15th Street in Mount Vernon. Officers arrived to find multiple victims. 2 people later died and 5 others were treated for gunshot wounds. The men killed were identified as 20-year-old Zamarius Williams of Mount Vernon and 26-year-old DeMonta Woodward of Mounds. City officials said a crowd of roughly 100 to 150 people had gathered in the area before the shooting. Early the next day, police announced the arrest of 22-year-old Jeria J. Smith on preliminary counts of reckless discharge of a firearm and obstruction of justice. Those charges were dropped without prejudice in court on Monday, meaning the case could be refiled as the investigation develops. Detectives continued working leads and later made additional arrests tied to the scene. 25-year-old Devonta Boyd of Mount Vernon was charged with aggravated discharge of a firearm. 29-year-old Dequan Hopkins of Wayne City was charged with aggravated discharge and unlawful possession by a repeat offender. And 26-year-old Jamaro J. Kemmerling of Mount Vernon was charged with aggravated discharge and unlawful possession by a repeat felony offender. Multiple agencies executed search warrants in Mount Vernon and Wayne City as part of the follow-up. Authorities have not released a motive, and the conditions of the 5 surviving victims were not provided. City leaders noted a lack of cooperation from attendees as the case moves forward. The investigation remains active. Number 3. Okeechobee, Florida. Early Sunday afternoon, July 27th, deputies were called to the Brindaband Forest subdivision outside Okeechobee around 1:35 for reports of a man in all black with a long-barreled gun firing shots. Before deputies arrived, the gunman shot and killed 2 neighbors, a man and a woman, at a home on Southeast 47th Terrace. Family later identified the couple as Pervin L. Evans and Debbie Evans. When deputies reached the block, the suspect refused commands to drop the weapon and opened fire. Deputies returned fire, striking him. He was airlifted to a regional hospital and later died. Investigators said the gunman had fired roughly 15 rounds before law enforcement engaged. Cell phone video from the scene captured officers shouting orders, followed by a burst of gunfire. Because of concerns about possible explosive devices, the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Bomb Squad responded with additional support from Martin County. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement is handling the officer-involved shooting review, and 5 Okeechobee County deputies were placed on administrative leave as standard procedure. The Sheriff's Office is leading the double homicide investigation. Authorities later identified the suspect as 51-year-old Paul Scott Wire of Okeechobee County. Officials said there was no clear motive. Neighbors reported no ongoing disputes with the couple and described the area as quiet. Records noted Weir had older charges in Palm Beach County years ago, but no recent local history with law enforcement. Number 2. Detroit, Michigan. Just after 6 in the evening on Tuesday, July 22nd, officers were called to the 20,400 block of Pinehurst Street on Detroit's west side for a reported shooting. Inside the residence, police found 3 people with gunshot wounds. All were pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators say the case appears to be a family matter. According to Detroit police, the dead include 2 men in their late 40s and mid-50s. The person believed responsible is a man in his late 20s who is related to the victims and is among the deceased. Detectives are treating the scene as an apparent murder-suicide, and at this stage, believe the incident was isolated to the home. Detroit's Homicide Task Force, which includes Detroit Police and Michigan State Police, is leading the investigation. As of Tuesday night, it was not clear whether any other family members were present when the shooting occurred. A motive has not been determined, and officials have not released further identifying details while they continue interviews and process evidence. Neighbors described the area as a stable community and expressed shock at the loss within a single family. Number 1. Hilliard, Florida. Around 8 in the evening on Thursday, July 24th, Nassau County deputies went to a home on West 12th Avenue in Hilliard after a 5-year-old girl ran to a neighbor saying a man had killed 3 women. Deputies entered through an unlocked front door. They first found a woman down in the dining area. In the living room, they found 34-year-old Christopher Bobby Rowell with a gunshot wound to the head and an SKS-style rifle beside him. He still had a pulse and was airlifted to a hospital where he was described as clinically deceased pending organ donation. A sweep of the house located 2 more women who had been shot, one in a bathroom and another in a bedroom. The victims were later identified as 32-year-old Marissa Liara Roll, 71-year-old Sandra Gale Fogarty, and 33-year-old Alicia Lael Fogarty. According to Sheriff Bill Leeper, investigators believe Rowell shot the woman in the dining room first, then the woman in the bathroom, then the woman in the bedroom, before shooting himself. The child was inside the home during the attack. After hearing a gunshot, she walked into the hall and saw the victim in the dining room. Another woman pulled her into a bathroom to shelter, and that woman was shot. The child escaped to a neighbor and was later placed with relatives. The sheriff characterized the case as a domestic violence incident. Authorities did not disclose the precise relationships among the four to protect the child's privacy. The investigation is ongoing. International bonus: Maguiresbridge, County Fermanagh, Northern Ireland. On Wednesday morning, July 23rd, police and paramedics were called at 8:21 to a home on Drummuir Road in Maguiresbridge, County Fermanagh. Inside, responders found a woman and a child fatally shot. A second child was taken to hospital and later died. A man from the same household was airlifted in critical condition to Belfast. Authorities identified the victims as 45-year-old Vanessa White, a veterinarian originally from County Clare, and her children James, age 14, and Sarah, age 13. The critically injured man, 43-year-old Ian Rutledge, died in hospital on Monday, July 28th. Detectives said all four suffered gunshot wounds and are investigating a triple murder with an attempted suicide as one line of inquiry. Police indicated there was no wider threat to the public and described the suspect's prior contact with police as limited. The killings shocked the rural community. Vigils were held in Maguiresbridge and in Bearfield, County Clare, where White grew up. Colleagues called her a devoted mother and respected public servant with the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs. The children's school in Enniskillen remembered them as vibrant and much valued pupils. A tribute to the family appeared at the All-Ireland final in Dublin. The investigation remains active. Police have not released a motive and continue to piece together the timeline inside the house that morning. Well, there you have it. This week's worst shootings. Stay tuned and subscribe to see next week's fatalities in our weekly reports. Stay safe.